I had a meme for this part.
Do the meme, you know you want to.
But honestly, I just wanted to start off this video by saying this build is the most fun I've had playing Guild Wars 2 in a long time. Ooh. Hi, kitty.
Hi, Daddy.
Ugh. Hello again and welcome back to the Heavy Hat. I'm not joking when I say this build is a lot of fun. To make a long story short, I'm not a fan of minions. I know a lot of Necro players have an army following them, but it's just not for me. So the point of this build is it's all about staying in Shroud for as long as possible. Blowing people up, popping back out of Shroud, gaining life force as quickly as you can, then going right back into Shroud again and blowing people up. So let's cut to the build. Sorry, that's the wrong clip. That's for a different type of video. Well, if you're new to Necromancer or Reaper, we're going to go over a super quick rundown of the skills we use, the build, and how to use it all. As I mentioned before, you might notice that there are no minions around me. Just not my playstyle. But if you want to throw a minion in, by all means. One thing I do want to mention about Reapers and Necromancers in general is they don't have access to a whole lot of movement abilities or really ways to teleport to others. It's much more of a, hey, you come over to me type of a build. So, here is the build if you'd like to take a screenshot. We go with Spite, Soul Reaping, and obviously Reaper. For the first one, we go with Spiteful Talisman, simply because it's a nice damage increase. Also, in addition to Greatsword, we use an Axe and Warhorn. As seeing as this makes your Axe skills recharge faster, it helps out. Next up over here, we have Signets of Suffering. But one of the reasons we have this trait is because this build is about spending as much time as we can in Shroud. Let's be honest, most of the time spent playing a Reaper is kind of like this. And as you can see, it helps Signet of Undeath cause life force gained increased by 33%. So when you are out of Shroud and all of your Shroud life force is gone, this will actually help you gain it back 33% faster. Next up, we've got Close to Death, which truly just increases your damage output when the enemy is below 50% health, which we will get to later, but it is very important. Moving down to Soul Reaping though, we take Speed of Shadows, Soul Barbs, and Death Perception. We take Speed of Shadows simply because it adds swiftness, and honestly, like I had mentioned, Reapers aren't really fast. So this helps out. In addition, it also cleanses a lot of debuffs that you might have, so that's super helpful. Since this build is completely surrounded around Shroud, Soul Barbs increases all damage you deal for a duration after you enter or exit Shroud by 10%. We also take Death Perception because it increases your critical strike chance and ferocity when in Shroud, which... Notice we are at 70% chance once we have Fury, which makes us, when we go into Shroud, have exactly around 100% crit chance. We've got 3% wasted, but it's not too big of a deal. What this means, though, is everything you're going to do in Shroud is going to crit. Moving on down to Reaper, we take Chilling Nova, simply because it slows everything down around you, causing you to be able to hit it better. We take Soul Eater simply because you're going to be in melee for most of the time, and it does increase damage to everybody within 300. And it heals you a little bit more, so it adds a lot of sustain. Then last but not least, we take Reaper's Onslaught. Reaper's Onslaught causes you to gain ferocity and quickness while on Reaper's Shroud. In addition to that, when you hit with your Life Reap skill, which is just one of the combos from one when you're in Shroud, it reduces the recharge time of all the Shroud skills, so you do more damage. Moving on to equipment. Any type of power build I've ever made, I usually go with a mixture of Berserker and Marauder's gear. And one of the easiest ways that I've done it is all of my accessories, rings, amulets. These are all the Marauder's equipment. And then everything else is Berserker. I also take a Superior Rune of the Scholar because it adds a great amount of power, ferocity we need to get to that crit cap, and increases strike damage when your health is above 90. For my Greatsword, I take the Superior Sigil of Force because it's just a flat 5% damage, but I also take Superior Sigil of Hydromancy because it slows everybody else down when you switch to this weapon. Also, fun fact, going between Shroud counts as weapon swaps, so that helps a lot. And I take the same thing over here on my Axe and my Warhorn. One thing to mention of why I do take Warhorn is because 4 is a great CC ability, and 5 adds swiftness. The damage isn't great, but simply having an extra amount of swiftness while you run around in combat is hugely beneficial to myself. As a Reaper, you get access to a Greatsword, which A, looks pretty sweet. But B gives you access to these abilities. Number 1 is honestly kind of your standard greatsword hit chain, with the third one hitting hard. Number 2 is just kind of a massive hit. Let's show you that. Okay. Number 3, which is called Death Spiral, is kind of just like basically a drill in front of you. Not bad. Number 4 is a AoE. Lays it down on the ground. Doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but it does enough that you want to drop it. Number 5 is a pull. So depending on where you are aiming, you will pull enemies towards you. For our utility skills, we take Signet of Vampirism, which is kind of just a passive heal, but you also have an active amount where you can heal yourself. Does help out a lot. Take Signet of Undeath to make sure that we're constantly gaining life force so we can pop back in and out of Shroud quickly. You can sacrifice your health to revive somebody else around you. I have done it a few times. Obviously, it's quite a bit, so it's a little risky, but hey. I also want to mention, I do have these all re-keybind if they do say 7, 8, 9, and 0. They're just on my mouse, so there you go. I had a couple people mention, hey, you need to rebind stuff, so I appreciate that. Over here we have Well of Darkness. This is simply just a great AoE. Doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but it lasts for a while, and you can put it there while you attack. Next up, we have Spectral Grasp. Now, a couple reasons why I take this is A, as I mentioned, don't have a whole lot of movement ability, so we want people to come to us. But B, it also causes a huge amount of life force gained depending on the amount of enemies you hit. So if you hit all 5, since it can target 5 enemies, I've gained about 10,000 life force from it. It's phenomenal. Last but not least, I have Chill to the Bone, simply to slow everybody else down around you, give yourself stability, and it does a pretty good amount of damage, but if you want, you are free to change any of these with a minion, if you're that kind of a person. Now, if we go into Reaper's Shroud with F1, you gain these abilities. Now, 1 is, again, just kind of a regular chain, which, as you can see, is pretty darn powerful all by itself. 2, we have Death's Charge, which is actually a movement ability. Let me give myself some life force again. I would recommend using this to get to enemies. One thing to note too is Death's Charge doesn't do a whole lot of damage, so if you're just auto-attacking on something, you'll actually do more damage just sitting there auto-attacking with 1 without even using 2. So my best advice is to only use 2 to get to and from enemies. We'll come to 3 in a second, so let's move to 4. 4 is Soul Spiral. This is the move that's going to be your best friend, that's going to cause the most DPS and make everybody like you.
You're my friend now. We're having soft tacos later.
So you click 4 and you spin around like a blender. Do a whole lot of damage. Now, my best advice is when you go into Shroud, immediately click 3, give yourself stability, and then click 4. Now, the reason I say that is because if you're just spinning around, the amount of times I've been knocked down right in the middle of my spin and been like, wow, cool, I just lost 60,000 damage. That's fun. Is ridiculous. Plus, you can literally click 3, 4, and there is no wait time. So, watch. There you go. Now, 3 does have a fear associated with it. Obviously, that is a little bit more for PvP. Not going to scare a boss away, unfortunately. But my advice is to use 3 and 4 on cooldown. And then, honestly, for the most part, you're just going to auto-attack other than those 2. Until we look up here, and the enemy is under 50% health. Now, why is that, you might ask? Because we have Executioner's Scythe. Does a different amount of damage depending on where the health of the enemy is. Now, I'm just going to be straightforward and say if they're above 50% health, I would just ignore it and continue auto-attacking because you're going to do more damage doing that. But the second they get under 50%, you can start smashing this thing. Plus, when we go back to our build, we did take Close to Death, which increases your damage by 20% if the enemy is under 50% health. So, he's a little bit above 50% health right now, so let's show you. Hits for about 9,000. I mean, that's not bad, but I mean, realistically, look at your auto attack. It does just about that much damage as it is. But the second he gets under 50% health, start throwing it in because it'll do more damage. There you go. That was almost 15k right there. And it gets even better once you get below 25%. So let's fast forward a little bit. He's under 25%, so let's hit Executionary Scythe. There you go. Hits for about 19k now. And I don't have all the buffs, so it hits even harder when we're fully buffed. So the biggest things to remember while you're in Shroud: A, make sure you're always auto-attacking because it does a lot of damage. B, make sure you use Death's Charge to go to and from enemies. I wouldn't honestly even bother using that in your rotation. Always keep 3 on cooldown to make sure that you have stability. You cannot be knocked down. Prioritize Soul Spiral because it's going to be the most of your damage. And then throw Executionary Scythe in your rotation the moment the enemy is below 50%. And then it'll look something like this. And we sit and auto attack. And do a whole lot of damage. Now obviously there's going to be times where you are not going to be in Death's Shroud, where you need to gain life force. Now there's a bunch of different ways you can do that. All your different skills here gain that, but if you need it quickly, I would recommend Death Spiral as well as Ghastly Claws. Your 2 on your axe. Okay, you gained about a quarter of your life force back just from that one move. In addition, let's do Death Spiral. Kaboom. And then ta-da! Let's actually drain it all the way so I can show you how quickly you can gain it back. Also, side note, I've been sitting here for about a minute at this point. That's how long it keeps you in Shroud. That's even without auto-attacking. When you're auto-attacking, you can attack for friggin' forever. Alright, finally, we're out. Okay. My best advice, throw Well of Darkness on there. That'll help get some of it back. And while you do that, click 2 on your axe. Switch over, click 3 on your greatsword. We're already at halfway. Click Spectral Grasp. Helps a lot. Ta-da. You're back. Pop back into Shroud. Rinse and repeat. Well, there you got it. One of the most fun builds I have ever played. On that note, huge thank you to everyone who told me to make a Necromancer, because it's a blast. I will include me doing a Fractal just for a little bit of gameplay so you can see it in action. On a more serious note, seriously, thank you for all of my recent subscribers. We're over 2,100 now. That's awesome. I'm about to take a big vacation for my real job for my birthday this week, so I'm excited. Plus, it'll give me some time to make some videos. So look forward to that. But I hope you know you guys are appreciated. Be nice to one another, and as always, have fun.
Oh, great, more spiders. Clear them out and let's go get that crystal energy. save you. I can fix this.
No, you can't, Kate.
Trisha,
There's only one way to save me now.
Light of Deldrimore.